welcome to the show. This is the Goodwind podcast, and I'm Niko, your host, actually your co-host today. Today's a very special day. One of my favorite people in the world, if not my favorite person. He teeters between one and, in the top three at any given moment. And always a pleasure to have him. We have the same humor. We are cut from the same cloth. He is a chemical engineer and a tea expert. That is his passion, and he's also a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. And most importantly, he's my biological brother. Introducing Vincent LaPelusa. Vincent.
Thank you so much. Biological brother Niko. I might do Niko. Because I'm so used to Nick, and then you've kind of made that switch to Niko.
Yeah.
Niko.
Also, don't. If I can, I've changed my name. Why did I change my name, right? Because I wrote out the Nick thing for 27 years. And then, and so I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Because my name, as you know, is spelled Nikolas, Nicholas.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if I was going to take the first four letters of my name, it wouldn't be Nick. It would be Niko. Now that, plus just the sound, I'm so infatuated with sounds in Nick, compared to Niko.
Niko.
Yeah,
it's nicer.
I think so too. So it was, I think people go through different, it's like a phase of a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of going with Dragonfly Panda or like Dragonfly Polar Bear or something, I went with Niko as my spiritual name.
Wow. I do like Dragonfly Polar Bear though.
Polar Bear.
Dragonflies are cool. I've been drawn to them probably since the summer. They're kind of cool.
Because of their multi-directional ability to fly. Do you know about this?
I don't.
They have a unique wing structure that, they're almost like they almost fly like UFOs would fly.
How we know UFOs fly. Yeah, I guess I see that. It's kind of similar to hummingbirds. Hummingbirds kind of do that. That hover. I mean, they hover, and then they move so quick and like almost like direct, like a perfect direction. I've noticed, and it's been. I find them fascinating to look at. Like I would love a little hummingbird feeder right outside my window.
Mm. I think I would go as far to say that dragonflies are the most dexterous flyers that we have on this earth. But what do you think? Okay, so amidst 2020, there was, I forget who comes out. The Pentagon comes out and says there are alien crafts not of this world. We don't really talk about aliens. You don't really bring it up that much. But
no.
what gives on aliens?
Yeah. Aliens. So first of all, I don't really bring it up much because I don't really think too often about it. It's not something that's ever really been too bothersome of me. But at the same time, the universe is too big for there not to be. I think it's scarier if we were alone.
Oh.
In how big of a universe it is. That seems less probable and like I said, a little scarier to think that like how did like really then like how is this one little experiment going on with conscious beings? I've been toying, and I don't know if you want to take this into aliens or if this is a different subject completely, but I've been listening to a lot of Neil deGrasse Tyson's TikToks lately, and it's been taking me kind of down a rabbit hole of the infinite universes, where there is an infinite number of multiverses where we're having this conversation, but I'm sitting there and you're sitting here. It could be as simple as that.
Right.
But there's also another infinite universe where, I'm living on the streets, or I'm the president of the United States, or something like that, or I'm going towards those paths, and like, or take it negative. Like, I've done horrible things in my life. Like, it's
infinite.
There is literally every single possibility of every decision I've ever made in my life. And that's been tripping me out more than anything lately.
I'd also say it's kind of impossible because I think we all know this is my good side, and I would never under any circumstances let you sit on this side. But furthermore, I kind of wanted to the feeling of loneliness or being alone, like in the space. I've had just a handful. I had anxiety attacks like around the coming of age, 13 years old time, where I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and though I'm not going to be able to like fully unpack that, one of the features is this like in the middle of space and everything is far away. It's almost like the same imagery of like, imagine being dropped in the middle of the Mariana Trench and there's like zero visibility but darkness for miles, and like that feeling of being like a star almost floating in a planet or a moon floating in this abyss of space is something that I've approached in anxiety. It started off as like this anxiety thing, but then I've come to understand it as like it's almost this awakening. It's been associated with positive things too, the more I've allowed myself to sit in that void. And that's what came to mind. But the question doesn't seem to be, is there life in the universe? But I guess when I say aliens, I mean, have they visited? Do they interact? I mean, we have the stories of pilots seeing things that defy the odds.
Yeah, and that's, so, I mean, you hear those stories of like recently of pilots seeing those crazy UFOs or seeing stuff that's just not to them of this world. And then you take it back to like the ancient times where people were like, how are the pyramids built and like stuff like that. Did aliens interact with us then? And have aliens just been kind of interacting with us kind of throughout existence? So my take on, have aliens been here? Yes.
Yeah. Pick a side. I'm in.
Yes.
I'm in.
And it's not the most confident yes I've ever had, but I'm there now.
What does that do? Because you're, I mean, this is not an out in any way. You're a practicing Christian in a lot of ways. I mean, you're also a practicing Christian who's a millennial and who's also a scientist who also has, you've had these conversations before. Yeah. But like, what does that do to me? Like the aliens coming here, to me, science and religion aren't opposites. They actually both prove each other in a lot of ways. They go together, and it's inclusive, not exclusive. But there's this whole narrative that if aliens came, people would lose their shit. They would be lost because of their perception of, what does that do to your perception of God? And for those who don't know, Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible, is like God created man in his image from the clay of the earth, and then woman from the rib of Adam. We've talked about this on this podcast of the clay model theory of religion, where God is outside of you, crafting, master technocraft, kind of building you, as opposed to the more Hindu style of God is within all things. We are all expressions of God, almost like. So what does that do to you? What does aliens do to your perception of Christianity? Would it change how you practice?
So in terms of God, no, it doesn't change my perception of who God is, because and this might be not standard Christian. I accept that. So I see God as not just a God of this world, as a God of the universe. So if there's other beings, I mean, it could be beings of God's creation. But then the other thing that you mentioned too is I also don't see God as being separate from us entirely. I see God as also being within each and every one of us. And it allows, and through God, we're able to do things, do like the supernatural. I think the quote unquote miracles, it's those feelings that you get when you see, when you like those gut feelings when you see someone or do something, or you have an urge to go in a certain direction. It's that to me is kind of a God pull, if that makes sense. And so
Yeah, do you have an example? I mean, we got time.
Examples.
Because I have examples, but they're kind of clouded by, I may have been on LSD, or I may have been, and I'm trying to think of like the almost, and I don't take anything away from that, from my own perception, that's, just because it's happening in my mind doesn't make it. Oh, Dumbledore said this shit. Dumbledore says this in the Deathly Hallows Part 2, right at the end. He's like, Harry's like, is this real or is it all in my mind? And he's like, just because it's all in your mind, does it mean it's not real? Or he says it more eloquently.
Yeah.
And that's like I'm like, oh yeah, like my experience did happen on these psychedelics, and it doesn't need the distinction of being fake just because it's...
For sure.
Yeah, so
I agree with that.
But those are my examples. I was thinking if you had examples.
I mean, a very simple example, very, very minor thing, is just when I was in a grocery store once, there's workers constantly like shelving, putting stuff on shelves and stuff, and one just asked me, she's like, do you need help with anything? And I was like, no, I'm fine, thank you. And then as I was about to walk away, I had that pull of like, ask her how she's doing. And I did that, and I just like, how's your day going so far? And she like told me, she's like, not good, to be honest. Like, not good, but just thank you for asking. And I was like, yeah, do you need anything? She's like, no, but I really appreciate you asking. That made my day. And I was like, cool, that's something. Like, that was something. And then I walked away. But to me, it's like listening to those types of feelings. That's a simple one that I can say, like, I just listened to. And again, I can call it a pull from God. People call it just a gut reaction. I don't know. I've heard different words for it, and I'm open to hearing interpretations of that.
Yeah, my perception is God is so inclusive. The idea of and I sometimes substitute nature.
Yeah.
And that's where the binding of science and religion for me kind of happens, because I think if I wanted to be a reductionist, or I wanted to try to explain that particular experience, I'd be like, okay, you felt or you saw certain body language, and because that it feels good to share love, it gives you serotonin. You were brave enough to cross that boundary, to care, to give a little bit. And it could be a self-rewarding mechanism, according to like Richard Dawkins, where you knew the serotonin was there afterwards. Of course, that's way too overly reductionist, and that's not even how I feel. I think although that's there, there's still so much mystery. And I mean, there's an argument that it all is like, have you had the time, I know you have, but like where something terrible happens, but then it validates itself like 2 years later. You're like, oh, that was the
100%.
Yeah. So it's like it's like the more I zoom out, the more that all of that natural flow of energy, the more chaos at one level can look like order at a higher level. And it's almost like we call that higher order God, but it's almost like, I guess my question is constantly does God interact with me? Do I interact?
Personal level?
Yeah, and I know even that question is making me separate from God, so it's not inclusive of what we talked about before. But to play along here, it's like, is it a flow of the universe that I'm just have to kind of align with, and there is some sort of interactive element? How much interaction with God is there?
Yeah. Exactly. Like how personal, and that is a good question. I don't know. Obviously, I don't have those answers. Those are the answers I think that go through a lot of people's minds. I feel as if like we do have like that higher order, that flow, because exactly like you said, like there's many things in life that in the moment just like, oh, this is the worst, like I'm going through the worst, and then a year or two later, it's like, oh, that was awesome that happened. So was that God trimming the death? Like an example that was given to me was your God's like houseplant kind of. And if I love my houseplants, and when there's a certain leaf that is dying or a stem that is dying, you trim it because you don't want it. Still is taking life from the whole of the plant, but you trim it and just discard it because you don't want it sucking. It's dying. It's a dying part of the plant. It's kind of it's a tumor on the plant. So you get rid of it and you let the rest of the plant flourish. The example is God. We are God's houseplants, and God is constantly trimming those negative things from our life that are going to absorb, that are going to take a lot of energy, but not actually put us on the path that He has designed for us. And so like kind of like that universal flow towards that. Now the question is though, the the free will aspect of that, because sometimes things are just taken out of our life without our control. There's other times where we have to make a conscious decision to separate ourselves from life. And sometimes we just choose to stay in a situation that maybe we don't consciously know it's taking away our energy, but if we sat thought with it, we would realize like, oh, this is draining me. This is draining me. And so I need to consciously make that decision to move away from this person, this activity, this whatever it is. So then there's that aspect of it.
Yeah, can we hold on to our dead leaves? I feel like humans can hold on maybe a little bit more than plants.
Yes.
Maybe not. But so I think of like Prometheus, right? You saw that movie, right?
I did not.
Okay. Well, it's basically the opening shot. Even if you don't watch the movie, the opening shot is fucking amazing. It's like a human-like alien lands on what can be assumed later in the movie is Earth.
Okay.
And it's like a still magma phase of Earth.
Oh, so this is
like it's almost pre-life. It looks very stony, lava-y.
Okay.
But he lands, the ship takes away, he drinks a potion, it looks like kind of a guy. He drinks like a potion and dissolves into like the water. Oh, there's water on Earth already.
Okay.
And then they zoom in and it's like what he dissolved into starts to form DNA.
Whoa.
So it's like, it's the ancient alien theory. It's such a fucking cool scene. If you've never seen Prometheus, it's like, even if you don't like scary movies, just watch the first 10 minutes. But my point is like, that kind of aligns to God, human made in God's image. Like that. And what if you found out that it was like another alien, a more ancient or older alien civilization that saw that this was a planet that could have, has water and therefore created humans? Is that God? For me, it's the answer is no, because I think God is more of a force, almost like that would include that ancient alien civilization and more primordial. But what would it do for your perception of like?
No, I think God is something that, I think to make it easier, a lot of people have an image of what God is, but I don't think God is something that you can tangibly understand as a human. I think the way you put it is a force more than anything. And I mean, me personally, the image I've always kind of had growing up is a very stereotypical kind of like big, huge bearded man for a while. That was like my image. But I've just...
Not Morgan Freeman?
Only after Bruce Almighty, but that was forced on me. That was forced
Not
on
after
me.
Shawshank? All right.
Yeah. No, not after Shawshank. That was, And everyone's just kind of accepted that he is our God.
And Al Pacino's the devil.
And Al Pacino is the devil.
So now you're more what?
So no, now I've come to accept that God is a true force in this world that I don't really I honestly I don't think too much on it anymore. It doesn't do me any good to like try to settle on the being of God.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't really. It's like, okay, I can think. It's fun. It's fun to think about it. Like, ooh, is God like a cloud? Is God a human? Is God like what is it? It's fun to think about, but at the same time, I feel like feelings, emotions. I feel like we all kind of know God in a sense, and it's just tapping into Him and listening to Him on a daily basis. And that's where the cool stuff starts to happen in people's lives when they start to do that.
Yeah, any image that we create is a limitation that ultimately
Yes.
it cuts out too much of the mystery. But I did hear you say, how do you feel about gendering something like God?
Yeah, no, God definitely doesn't. Gender, again, that's limiting.
Right.
That's very limiting.
Right.
And God does not have a gender. It's not a.
Would
gender.
they be more closer, or is that just minutia that's not?
To me, that's yeah. If people want, like, if I'm around people who they would prefer, if the humans would prefer a they, or again, to me, I consider him a he, him. But again, that's mostly because that's how I was raised, and in the Christian religion, that's kind of just how he's described. It's a very masculine figure. To me, though, that doesn't. I guess they would be. I would feel more comfortable with they, I guess.
Because God's also described as a trinity.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
and
like
so it is they.
the man element, that force element we were talking about, can almost be articulated as like the Holy Spirit, is the force element that I guess I would associate with nature. And then God is like the inclusion of man, the force, or like the physical world and the force, and then some, and then all of that which it lives in, and the space that all of it lives in, or something.
Yeah. Yes.
Like Brahma, Shiva, and Shakti.
Yes.
Brahma is that's similar.
Trinity. Similar Trinity, exactly. Yeah, and that's so. Yeah, I feel comfortable saying they. I think that's honestly. I think that's more. Christians, I've heard like they have a challenge of describing what the Holy Trinity is. I mean, and yet they do stick with the he, him still. It's like maybe try out they. Maybe that would be a better understanding to get the point across. If that's what you're trying, if that's a goal of yours as a Christian.
I don't know if it's because of the people I hang out with, but when I've gone to church with you and the family, it's when I do hear the he, him, as whatever it is, I'm like, I do have a sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah. Well,
I'm like, that's doing nothing. Like, I mean, how much do people have to scream at the top of their lungs about the patriarchy? Right. Like, I hear it so much. It's like, can't we at least change the language? Yeah. But again, that might not be I don't want to spend my time fighting how someone else is trying to describe mystery, as opposed to like just living it myself and choosing my own language, But I'll catch myself being in there and being like pretty critical of.
For sure, it's something that you can get caught up in. But again, if those thoughts come to mind, to me, it's like, oh, I'm taking away from who this being really is. Like, again, that's limiting. To me, that's semantics, that's limiting. It's not that important. I try to look past it. But if it's important for someone else, I'm open to changing. And I think, and like you said, I think they is a more proper path.
Last to wrap this, so we know God now. We know about them, and is there a way to communicate with aliens? Is there a force or like a frequency, or in that infinite galaxy or dimension, multiverse. Is there a way to thread yourself between to kind of peek into the maltiness?
I have not figured it out yet. Granted, I haven't tried really. That would scare me
because people talk to aliens, and they believe it. I'm not trying to take it away. I haven't seen beings yet that I've known are from elsewhere. All of my trips and all of my like deep meditations are like nature. Like I use imagery like animals that are of this planet. I don't get like what are they? The tall gray aliens or like I've seen gnomes. I think one time.
I've heard that before.
I've seen like a gnomish type of thing.
I've heard that's a thing.
It was just a brief moment. A guy, like he was in a tree, and then I was like there, a mine tree, and then
mine tree. Okay.
He looked up, or they looked up, and then they like became the tree again. Whoa. This is so brief.
Yeah.
And it was in this like world of green, and like I was also in the jungle on.
That sounds
ayahuasca
cool,
in my mind.
I don't know. I guess I would say the closest to communicating might be through hallucinogenic medicines, but again, I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So let's talk jiu-jitsu maybe.
Okay.
Where are you at on that? You are still rehabbing from a knee injury sustained during jiu-jitsu. Now, I've had 2 belts, right? I've had white belt and blue belt myself. I've been caught in this blue belt phase for a long time due to moving gyms a lot. But each belt for me has been associated with a pretty traumatic injury.
Jeez, yeah, I got that too. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'm nervous to get a purple belt.
It's like gonna get worse.
I'm like,
or
I might just be a blue belt for the rest of my life, and I love blue anyway.
I now understand the injury aspect of it because I did not have any major injuries in white or blue.
What about in high school wrestling?
Never had a major injury.
It's because you were a high school young man, or because of what?
I didn't really try in high school.
That doesn't protect me from injuries.
That doesn't actually protect you, no. Because I saw some guys who didn't try and got some pretty gnarly injuries in wrestling. I don't know. High school, the worst injuries came from football in high school.
Oh, really? What? I don't even know.
I don't know. I have a bump here. You can see that.
Yeah.
I did something to my thumb, but I never got it checked because I didn't want to take time off from football.
And it healed in a funky way?
So there's that. I got a lot of getting my hands just jammed in face masks. I sprained an ankle. I got a concussion. All these things never self-diagnosed. Right. I just didn't I didn't follow through because I wanted to keep playing.
Wow.
And that's, looking back, I'm like, that's stupid. But it was stupid. But I enjoyed it in the time. So, but wrestling and so this injury, this knee injury in jiu-jitsu is my first major. I mean, I needed surgery. And that definitely has now humbled me. It's given me a little bit of fear. I haven't gone back to jiu-jitsu yet, and I'm not technically cleared to. I don't feel comfortable to. And I don't know. I think it will definitely give me some hesitation for a while to get back into it. And we'll see. But that being said, I really like jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. I really like it. So I'm not going to stop doing it. And the fact that this happened, I almost wish it was with like a spazzy white belt that I had my injury.
Why? Okay.
Because then it's like, it's because of the spazzy white belt I can avoid spazzy white belts.
Oh.
But it was with a trained purple belt, a guy who knows his stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was just it was literally a freak. Like, it was like I was in a position I've been in hundreds of times at this point, and it just happened. And like that to me is like almost something that's harder to get over, because now it's like Now when someone brings my leg up over their head, am I going to freak out?
The unknown.
The unknown, because like that's my leg. He was on his back. I was trying to pass his guard, leg up over his head. Pop, pop, pop. Lay on my back.
Your game will definitely. So I guess I've separated my AC joint in my shoulder. I still haven't gotten it surgically repaired or anything. My white belt injury was a toe injury, actually, and it was just a sustained toe injury that affected me for months, and I just kind of played through it. The AC joint, I sat for like 6 weeks, never got it surgically repaired. When I got back, I was very mild, very timid.
Yeah.
I also found out that I was pretty sick at the time when I came back. So
yes. Yeah.
I feel so now. My game is, I can still feel it. Like I'm not privy to like Berimbolo to my left.
Yeah.
I will play half guard on my right side.
Okay.
Like I'll lay down on my right hip and play from that place more so. Like I'm like, my game has adapted where I've actually become more side dependent. And
Okay.
but there's been like a new vigor of like being healthy again, having energy that I didn't know I lost, and having strength and weight back that I didn't know I lost. Where my game's improved, but I guess it's always just kind of different, and it doesn't really limit me. I don't think about it anymore as much because the hesitation is like injury's favorite place.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
the clenching that leads to the
100%.
that leads to the injury somehow in a way. So it's almost like, look, this world the lesson of this life might be letting go. Like this might be a grand act of letting go. I forget who said that. That's someone's, but that applies to the jiu-jitsu game. Like even though my shoulder is, I guess, more vulnerable now, I have to let go of it every time I go into a roll, and that actually somehow keeps me safer in a way. Also, I'm not afraid to train just twice a week. Like for so long it was, I got to train every day.
Yeah.
To get better, I have to train every day. But
Yeah.
I'm finding that if I'm rested properly, I'm going in and I'm winning and I'm doing better and I'm showing and I have more success actually, and it's building, and the success is building on top, and I'm actually doing better. I'm getting better faster. I'm learning because I'm not fatigued mentally. I'm not scared, or I want to be there.
Yeah.
The times I'm there, I want to be there, so I'm actually like maximizing my time there.
For sure.
And that's been a huge thing for me too. Rest. Real rest.
Yes. I feel like there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, well, okay. And one more, if
yeah.
it's just to
Yeah,
make
yeah.
it more complicated, also choosing my my rolling partners and finding my no. You're a purple belt now, dude. You
Yeah.
have the right to
say
pick
no
and
to-
choose and
yeah.
to say no, and you're old enough to like, dude, you're a man. You're like, you can say
Yeah.
you can have your no. You don't have to prove shit to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think all those three things are going to be a way when you come back that you can, build up again.
Yeah, for sure. So the idea of going every day, that's something that stuck with, or that screamed at me when you were talking about that, because that's especially someone like myself who, growing up playing, I mean, you played sports your whole life, in high school playing sports every single day, and I mean, it didn't matter. Like, you had morning practice and afternoon practice, and so you were there every single day, and if not, it was 10 times worse the next time you were there. So it's like, that's been drilled into me. So it's like, yeah, I have those same like guilt, almost like when it's like, I should go today. I don't have an excuse besides the fact of like, oh, I'm sore, I'm tired. And then sometimes I force myself, and yeah, I just getting pounded that day, just constantly Granted, I've also had days where I've gone and I've had great days.
Yeah, like there's a dance there.
Yeah, there's a dance.
Yeah.
So it's and like I'm like, wow, I'm glad I really came today.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was a great. That was all just like a mental barrier. So there for me, it's like finding that balance of understanding what is true rest. Like what does my body really need? And I'm still trying to figure that out. And then also just saying like, what's just me being mentally like, nah, I don't want to go today.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to do this today. But just because I don't want to, I'm being lazy. That's where I'm at with that. But with, and then with power of saying no, I mean, that's outside of jiu-jitsu. That's just, it's a beautiful power. But with jiu-jitsu, especially.
Good place to practice.
Yeah, it's a great place to practice. Again, I was a purple belt for 1 month before I got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and there was one day, and there's something, I don't know, again, if you experience this, like going from white belt to blue belt, it's like just the act of getting that purple belt and wearing it, or like wearing the new color, all of a sudden, it gives me, I'm better. Like some days I am just better. Like I roll, like we did King of the Mat, and for those who don't know, in jiu-jitsu, if you do King of the Mat, you're usually in a position, and then your goal is so for this one, I was in full guard, and their goal was to pass my guard or submit me, and my goal was to sweep or submit.
Right. So get them on their back, or kill, or simulate killing them.
Or simulate killing them, or they simulate killing me, or
get
past
my
your
legs,
hips. Yeah, past my hips. And so I didn't lose. I didn't lose the entire. I think it was the last 15 minutes. No, maybe the last 20 minutes of class, and I was sweeping everyone. I swept a black belt.
Oh yeah.
I've swept a
flower sweeps. I'm picturing like.
So no, actually, so it was. He got his knee in between my crotch and like separated my legs. At which point, I got into half guard to dogfight I forget what you call it. Coyote, and then just tackle basically.
Yeah.
Tap the leg, tackle.
Yeah.
Bring him down. And I did due to fatigue lose against the brown belt with like 2 minutes left, and it made me upset.
Wow.
I swept him. I swept him before, and then he came back.
Really?
He had vengeance. It was I don't want to say it, but
yeah.
So he came back. I could tell he had a little bit of spark because I got him the first time around, and so like just that act of like, it was like I was no different a week ago, and I feel like just the act of
the momentum, the mental,
like you said, the momentum of winning, it's just a constant. It's like I was given the purple belt, validated, and then it's like
confidence is high.
I'm there.
Confidence is crazy in fighting. Yeah, it is crazy, but I think of like, I talk to guys who don't train and they're delusional. you know?
Listening to you talk about this before.
Yeah, you did.
Jiu-jitsu, it's
like I remember going to Puerto Rico, and there's some guys I worked with, and they're all talking about like fighting and like and how tough they are, which is of course is a red flag. But I was just like, oh, where do you guys train? Mm-hmm. Oh, I did some boxing and so you don't train?
No training.
This was 20 years ago. Okay. Oh, I did Krav Maga in a decade ago. Yeah. Okay. And just the air of confidence they have, I don't think that is the kind of confidence that will work. There's a particular earned confidence that once it's validated, it's like unleashing kind of like a beast. Yeah, I do. Purple belt is a goal still. I mean, I definitely want it, but like I've also committed to being a blue belt for the rest of my life.
You look good in purple though. You're wearing purple pants.
I
mean, it looks good with
subliminally.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope Ish watches this. And I should say you train at like a really top high-end academy, and like to win King of the Mat that much is something, because the academy that I've been at and is still high quality, but there's just been classes where I've been the highest ranked person there.
Yeah.
And which meant that I had the most knowledge and technique, and I was able to maintain that position just through and not even expend that much energy, just through technique and stuff like that. So, but to bring that, it's submitting black belts, sweeping brown belts is like a rare treat that I might get. It's becoming more and more now, but it's still a rare treat.
Yeah,
you know,
it still is for me. That was a beautiful, rare day, kind of, that I'm still working at. But
do you remember when So I think about this sometimes. The day we were supposed to get our blue belts. Me and Vincent trained at the same academy in Minnesota. Pretty much our entire white belt career. Not really. We each had kind of like 2 stripes on our white belt, and then we got together and trained for like another year. Mm-hmm. And there was a day we were training. We were both like kind of seasoned 4-stripe white belts, 4-3 white belts, and we line up. And I just had the feeling we were gonna get promoted. And as we lined up to close out, which is when they gave out promotions, lightning struck the building, and the power went out.
Yes.
And so the day we were supposed to get our blue belts, lightning hit around the area. The power went out, and Ish was like, our head instructor's like, oh, well, I was going to give out some promotions, but I guess we'll wait.
Yeah.
And
I forgot about that.
And the next time we showed up, actually you showed up the next day, and you got your blue belt, and then I showed up the day after and I got my blue belt. But I'm like, fuck, dude, is this a sign? Like, we have infinite power as soon as we get like, the world's not ready for us to be blue belts. You don't fucking remember? Dude, think about that.
That was not something powerful for me.
It was lightning striking and power going.
It's like literally the epitome of God striking down, legitimate, and it meant nothing.
It's like Hercules, the animated movie, when Phil gets struck by lightning, right before he accepts the training. I think about that all the time. Whoa. So I don't know. I'm no rush for this purple belt because I'm literally scared.
literally scared. That might have been meant for you because nothing happened. Well, wait, did something crazy happen? And I got... No, nothing crazy happened when I got my purple belt, except for Ish made me roll with the 6 black belts that were... It was me, all the brown belts and black belts on a mat separately. That was the crazy thing, but that was his...
That's a treat.
It was actually really
because
fun.
Because there's also a power that comes with being the underdog. Mm-hmm. Because I remember one time visiting M Theory, which is the jiu-jitsu academy in Minnesota we trained at, and Ish paired us up in teams of 3, and I was a blue belt, and he put me with like 2 black belts, and I was like, ooh, like it's exciting because first off, these are seasoned black belts who are not going to just hurt me for the sake of hurt. They have nothing to prove, so they won't hurt me too bad. And I have nothing to lose in terms of like I can only surprise people.
Yeah, it's like there's only victory.
And I think I caught 1 sweep that entire time but that was it, and that was worth it. I felt like it was very validating to have done so.
Yeah, so that was a fun day, honestly. And I mean it was fun because I also kind of knew he's like, all right, all the black belts, brown belts on that mat, and he's looking at me. Looks at my belt, looks at me, he's like, and all the 4-stripe blue belts. And I'm like, seems targeted, but okay. So it was fun. But yeah, there's that power in being an underdog too. It's almost comes with the confidence because it's like, well, what's the worst? Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? I'm gonna get submitted. Expected. I should.
Exactly.
I should. So when you do catch those things, it's fun.
Jiu-jitsu. It's
a great sport.
Should we talk a little tea? I mean, I still want to promote your. So Vince has basically is a tea researcher with his science background. He looks into tea's properties from a scientific perspective, and what they do and how they interact with the body, as well as the cultural and social and all this stuff. But you put out a blog called Fresh Steeps, freshsteeps.com, and it's really insightful. I mean, even for a non-tea enthusiast, there's still, it's entertaining, and there's enough knowledge there to. So, what's your agenda with Fresh Steeps, and maybe explain it a little bit for those who don't know?
Yeah. So I like tea. I love tea. It's something that's been kind of a part of my life now for the majority of it, and I wanted to basically I wanted to learn more about it myself. And what better way of learning more about it yourself than doing the research and then passing it along to others? Because I think the best way of truly learning is being able to teach about something. And so I kind of decided that with this tea blog, there's something cool. And tea is such a diverse topic that, yeah, like you said, there's a cultural aspect, there's an art aspect. I mean, tea has influenced art in not only writing, but in decorating and other sorts of arts in many ways. But then there's also the science background, which is what I've kind of been more drawn to, looking into tea and what's going on when you steep a cup of tea. And it's crazy. Some of the research behind it it's cool. And I'd say the research, there's not a big calling for research on tea. So it's something from accredited labs. There's good research out there, but there's not that much. There's definitely still needs to be more. So from what I try to find good sources as much as one can, and I do as good of a job as I can to convey those messages. But I've found just what's drawn the most to me is finding, again, those compounds that are in tea, L-theanine, for example. It's an amino acid that has that property of giving you a sense of calm. A calm focus is kind of how it's been described in the tea community, because tea inherently has caffeine. So the caffeine, as most people know, gives you the kind of the oomph to get going with your day. But this compound of L-theanine balances it out and gives you a focused and calm. It brings down that super spike that you get from, personally, I should speak, when I drink coffee.
Spike.
I get a spike.
So it kind of balances
caffeine.
out slow build as opposed to a high build.
Yeah. And then a slow
descent.
Descent. Versus the spike up and down. And that's kind of honestly why I loved tea. And it's because of that feeling. And then I've looked into it, and so that stuff fascinates me. It's really cool, and I try to pass it along, and I got some last week just on my Instagram post. I asked if I sent out a poll if people want to know more about it, and it sounds like I got an overwhelming response of yes, that people are interested in that stuff. So
what the science?
The science behind it. So that was kind of reassuring too. It's cool that people like that stuff and people kind of want to know.
Yeah, and it's bridging. It's bridging what you know and what you do with what you like.
Yes,
yeah, so
exactly.
It's authentic.
And so that's been, that alone has just been fun to understand that and dive deeper into it, because again, you find out there's crazy things that people a lot of times throw tea bags in and just leave the tea in the hot water, and then just for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, just as long as it takes them to finish that cup of tea. I'm finding out that the chemical composition of that cup is changing so frequently that if you leave it in there, eventually it's going to hit a homeostasis and just stop, stop all reactions. But if you leave it in there for longer than 5 minutes, a lot of what you think you're getting with tea, it's actually now it's become something completely different that you're not getting at all. And so that's been also like the proper way to steep a cup of tea. And like if you're just doing it for taste, some people really like the bitterness of tea, and I would say that you're just burning the leaves then. And that's kind of what it is. I mean, Dad does that a lot.
Yeah.
He really likes to just like burn the leaves and get that really bitter taste. But now, having experienced other teas, it's bad. It's bad, and it, like I said, it completely negates the composition of what that cup holds. So it's yeah, I've been liking diving into that a lot.
Well, I've been enjoying it too, and I didn't know it was a passion really, or even a interest until I've really enjoyed you diving into this, and I like the history. I mean, I like the ceremony of tea. Like ayahuasca is a type of tea as well, so it's even referred to as the tea. So it all kind of makes sense to me, and it really triggers me in the right kind of ways as well. So I appreciate that. So where can people find you? Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, so if, I'm most active, freshsteeps.com. Obviously, that's the blog. That's where I'm posting weekly, just keeping up to date with. I'll post reviews of tea companies. I'll post these scientific researches of what's in your cup of tea. As well as just recipes, other fun things that people like. I got an Instagram, Fresh Steeps, and TikTok, Fresh Steeps, and there is a Facebook. I'm less active on the Facebook, so I'd say if you're on social media, check out the Instagram and TikTok. Those are more fun, and yeah, I'm more active on that. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vincent. Vincent Alexander, everybody. This has been the Goodwind.